march on.
Till victory is won.
Now we add a little something to it. Just to encourage you. We're going to take you to church later. Let's go.
We'll keep marching, fighting till the victory is won.
To all my brothers out there.
Hold your head up, brothers, till the victory is won.
To all my sisters in the struggle.
Keep believing, sister, till the victory is won.
Till that day.
Till that day comes.
Hey.
Let us march on.
To victory.
Till victory.
We want to say happy Black History Month. And you know, one of my favorite things to do is to play this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing. On this particular occasion, I am not the host of Let's Talk. Today, I am the interviewee, and the interviewer will be none other than our very own Sister Claudia.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited to be here. I am honored that I get a chance to interview my hero during Black History Month. So I'm hoping that you guys are locked in. Grab your pens, your paper, because I want you to kind of take note yourself, because I've got my notebook, my paper, and even a couple of journals to creep into to ask some questions that will hopefully spark some memories and invite you all to take a look at your life and see what you've done to innovate, to inspire, and or to educate people in your community. Because Miss Stephanie, Denise, Ashton, Anthony have done that and some. So get ready. Go ahead, y'all. Take a second. And grab your tea, your coffee, your water, whatever it is, and those different things, your pen, your paper. And have fun with us, please.
Look, the pressure is on. The pressure is on. I'm scared of the questions that will come up. But you're tuned to Let's Talk. I'm usually your host, Stephanie Anthony. And we want to have a good time. We always try to discuss things that are in the news or current events, things that we need to take a look at. And we always want to do things that will make a difference. And so Sister Catherine decided that this Black History period, we would talk to me. And so Claudia has that task, and we hope that I can answer her questions. So without further ado, the spotlight is on.
Well, you know I love a spotlight. But for those who do not know me, I am the middle daughter of our illustrious host, Stephanie, here. And I grew up in Baton Rouge and moved on to. Oh, you about to say
Whoop. You gotta say this, or folks will be mad. Although you hear me all the time talk about the red and gold, hail dear capital, I am a mighty, mighty lion. And so was her father. But somehow 2 lions gave birth to some panthers. And Claudia is a part of the Blue Machine, the big Blue Machine, McKinley Senior High School of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the very first Black high school. Oh, goodness. Very first Black high school in Baton Rouge. In fact, because Baton Rouge had the only black public high school. My mother came from North Louisiana. My father came from South Louisiana. She was from Dubuisson. He was from Head Island. And they met in Baton Rouge where there was McKinley. And of course, each of them were McKinley students. However, in my mother's sophomore year, the wonderful Capital Senior High School opened as the second um, black high school in Baton Rouge. And they were, anyway, I resulted as their first child after that meeting. And I just wanted to throw that in there for you. And she became the first Miss Capital. So I wanted to sprinkle that in there before she bombards me with questions that have questionable answers.
Oh goodness. Well, they won't be questionable because only you can prevent forest fires. No, only you can tell your story, right? And that's what we're doing. So as
That's
far
what
as
they say.
telling a little bit of my story, she just gave you a little bit of it. Yes, I am a McKinley Senior High graduate from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the mighty mighty Blue Panthers. I'm also a graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I moved and have been in have been in Atlanta now for over 10 years. And during that time, I married. I have a beautiful child that's, fantastically hammering in the background, and and have two beautiful stepsons that are doing well and doing their thing. But today, we are going to have a little fun during Black History Month, in my opinion, honoring my hero and finding out a little bit more about who she is and, what we don't know, some of the things we might not know. But I'm sure some of you out there that are watching and listening have been watching and tuned into her for many, many years. So I'm excited.
Amen. I am too. And I want to let you guys know that um, if you want to put some blame, um, please, I'm reading what Claudia, not Claudia, Sister Lacole Threets is saying that we should mute when we're not speaking.
Yes,
But
I had a little disturbance in the background, but it's all well. And I agree. It allows us to really hear what you're saying. So it's almost like that's the wonderful thing about doing interviews that are like Zoom kind of style or live. The best way to hear another person is to mute yourself. So thank you for that input. That's fantastic. All right, let's go on with the first question, right? How about that?
okay.
My first question, it's interesting because I've already said it that you are my hero, you are my inspiration,
Aw.
and a lot of people always say, well, when you're growing up, who was your hero? What did you want to be, when you grew up? So I'm gonna take it all the way back to grade school where that's concerned and ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up? Now, don't think about what you became. Think about at the time what you wanted to be when you grew up.
You will never believe this, but I wanted to be a writer on Broadway. You mean what I wanted to, if you're asking me what I wanted to do for a living, yeah,
Yes.
I wanted to be a writer on Broadway. Now, don't, I knew Broadway tunes and I knew some Broadway stories, although I had never, ever been to New York. This was the early days of TV, but somehow or another, I found out that the plays that they had on Broadway were written by people. And I figured that I was going to write plays. And once I got grown, I would, go to New York and
Mm-mm.
yeah, get an apartment and write plays that would be Broadway hits. Well, yeah, I know we're in Black History Month. This was in the 60s. So the thing that was incredible was that, when somebody say, "What you want to be when you grow up?" And I'd be like, "I want to be a writer in New York City." And they look at me and say, "Don't you want to be a teacher? Wouldn't you like to be a nurse?" you know, I think you'd be a good secretary. Secretary's right. And then there were the hard-hearted ones that would say, "Don't you know you black?" Colored people don't write. Colored people don't write. Plays in New York City. So, um, that was how that went, and I ended up. I ended up eventually. Well, God is good. I My best friend in elementary school was Cheryl Lafayette. And Cheryl and I, believe it or not, used to act out things. She was in the school play, which was a adaptation of an adaptation of an adaptation of the Nutcracker Suite. And that just opened it up for us. We she was gonna be an actress, I was gonna be a writer. And actually, when we got to high school, we went out trying out for plays, places. Her mother was so sweet, because she would take us wherever we found out. Cheryl, let me say this: both our parents got the daily newspaper back then. Baton Rouge had two newspapers, the State Time Morning Advocate, and they had the no, I'm sorry, the State Times and the Morning Advocate. The State Times was the afternoon paper, daily paper, and the Morning Advocate was the morning paper. So my parents got the Morning Advocate and the um, Sunday Advocate, and her parents got the State Times and the Sunday Advocate. So, and she, believe it or not, she had to be smart because she loved to do the puzzles. The daily, the puzzles in the newspaper that usually used to be by the comics, somewhere in that vicinity. And so her mom always made sure that she didn't throw the paper away or didn't throw away that section. So Cheryl would also find the announcements for plays that was coming up. And sometimes we would we go auditioning now. And we would be the only little raisins in the milk. But anyway, thanks for asking that question, because you I don't know if we ever talked about that.
It's interesting. I don't think we have. It doesn't come up as something that's in my mind. And as you know, that was something that I ended up. Well, I never wrote on Broadway, but that was something that I ended up doing a lot more of, which was not just the idea of getting out there and performing, but also writing and taking some of my thoughts and turning them to page, and then seeing them on stage, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah. And let me say this, that you know I always say that God was so good. All the things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do, my kids did. And so when you had your woman show, and when you had your Black History play about inventions, I was just overwhelmed. And I don't know why I didn't ever tell you about that particular, phase in my life. But I also wanted to say that later on in life, Vanetta Boyd, in high school was my best friend. And we did a lot of things together, including um, writing plays. And we had this great play. Um, we each wrote a play. I wrote a short, which was, uh, I've forgotten the name of it, but it was a Rita's Theater play.
Wait a
Something that
minute. Okay, wait. You gotta tell us what Reader's Theater is.
readers a Reader's Theater
Everybody.
play is usually done kind of like Greek chorus, where there are several people. They're on stage for the whole play, for the whole production. They don't memorize the lines. They usually have it written. In my case, everybody had a black folder, and all of the sounds, all of the audio. Oh, and they sit on stools or stand in place, but there's no movement. It's only reading. So there's no movement in a Reader's Theater play. You don't know about this stuff. They don't hardly do that anymore.
Real, yeah, that I've never seen it. I've heard of them, but I've never seen it because those of you who do not know, I have a degree in theater, and there's a lot of learnings that I learned about, and that was one of them. And so I asked you to talk about it because I wanted people to really know what it is. I've never seen it done as something like I paid for it to go and do it. We did it in school, just in learning this process. But I think that's exciting that you guys used to have that. People have gotten away from a lot of the styles of theater, except for now people have really kind of pushed improv because it's fun. But I think that is actually
you're the improv queen.
I had a chance. I had a lot of fun with that.
I don't even try that stuff.
But I think doing it the Reader's Theater way is, and so okay, so when you guys did your play, what year was it? Can you remember? Like around what era?
I don't remember exactly. It must have been the late 60s.
Late 60s.
I did one time, I tell you what I did. I ran across a newspaper article because although they didn't cover.
Excuse me.
Oh, there's your co-host. But there was a newspaper article that they announced the play, and so if somebody Google it for me, it was with Stephanie Anthony and Vanetta Boyd. Vanetta gets the top billing because, of course, it was her, it was her play, the big play, and mine was like the pre-play. It was the short. Let me put it that way. So
I know that in movies they do that, where it's like you have kind of another film before a film. That's pretty cool. I asked that because I have a question that's pinned here about you wanting to know about what you want to be when you grow up. Sometimes a lot of things come from somewhere else. Like for me to be in that.
We're about to have technical difficulties. I'm
Okay.
going to let you talk, and I'm going to try to find the piece of equipment I need in order to.
So what's wonderful is how you kind of allowed us to see through your eyes your decision to, as far as answering that question, what did you want to be when you grew up, right? My next question was going to be about, or is going to be about, what made you get into that? And for me, just hearing you kind of talk about that, talk about how you wanted to write right on Broadway. That's kind of interesting because I ended up getting into theater, going and performing off Broadway and doing a lot of different shows, auditioning in New York City. And a lot of times, some things happen subconsciously. And I want you, as the audience, to take a second and think about how you came to the idea of what you wanted to be when you grew up. What I wanted to be when I grew up was I wanted to be a runner. I wanted to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal. I wanted to run, and I wanted to be fast. And my inspiration, I believe, came from what I was seeing around me, seeing on television, seeing in the newspapers. And I was inspired by a runner by the name of Florence Griffith Joyner. And so when I made it to, I want to say my second year in grade school, second grade, I wrote in my journal when they said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "I want to be an Olympic runner." And I remember that because all the way through high school, I kept that journal, and I was able to look back at that and say, "Oh, this is where I got that." So I want you for a second, as the audience, to think about what made you say what you wanted to be when you grew up. A lot of times during Black History Month, we think about the past, and I think it's pretty awesome that we do. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to think about our past and our future, and how did we determine what we wanted to be, and what are we doing in our community to inspire the generations to come. Yeah, my mother, Stephanie, spoke about that I did a play about Black inventors. Well, I was surrounded by wonderful technical people. My mom, she calls herself the guru because at a time she was the first person in our neighborhood to have a computer. I was inspired by that. Technology, STEM, we had the STEM going on. We had the library in the community before anybody else had a library in our community. People would come for their reports and borrow an encyclopedia that my mother had. They would borrow books that my mother had. I was surrounded by that. And in that same breath, I want you to think about some of the things that brought you to what I want to be when I grow up. Now, interesting enough, I had to take a second back and think about that, because I didn't know, or at least I didn't remember, that it was put in my subconscious that one day I would want to do some work that was, on the lines of Broadway work. And it came from my mom. It came from her encouraging me in some way to want to write well, to want to see works that were like mine. And it's pretty amazing. So I'm going to turn the question back around on the same strength of what we were just talking about just now. I was basically saying, wow, subconsciously, I had no idea that I was going to even get into theater, and to hear that my mom wanted to do Broadway at some point in her life. That's what she wanted to do when she grew up, and it ended up coming down the line. It's not like a family job or anything, but that's pretty cool, So who inspired you, or what inspired you to want to kind of take that path? Like what was it?
I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I didn't get much encouragement. The encouragement that I got, actually came from my peers who, dared to want to do something other than, the regular sort of thing. So I didn't do exactly what I set out to do, but because the opportunities were not there.
Well, it's interesting enough that you say that, because one of the things that I had to do this week with my daughter, your grandchild, was to work on a project for Black inventors, and they talked about how they didn't have access to those kind of things. And I don't know if you noticed it, but I was kind of asking, when did that happen? Like what era? You said the 60s. In the 60s, so that everybody can kind of understand. I mean, you look young, I look young, we're young looking people, and people don't understand that a lot of this stuff that people talk about, the adversities that you had to overcome, people talk about it, but they don't really see the timeline here.
Yeah, I think I might be wrong, but I think the Voting Rights Act might have been 1967. We were, most of my coming up years were in segregation. And not only were things limited, but depending on where you lived, it could be dangerous for you to want to do something other than what was prescribed, so to speak, for you to do. I think I remember when Medgar Evers was shot down in his driveway. That people were still talking about Emmett Till, although this had happened um, a couple of decades before. But people were still talking about that to let you know that you could be young and cocky and get permanently knocked off your pedestal. So you had to beware. I see Sister Three said
She
she
taught
taught
us
us.
how to be fearless in all things. And that's interesting because it's so true. You did, and you still do. So let's go on that, because that's actually something, and she doesn't know this, but I had that on here. You see this, it says be fearless. That's on here because that's something that you did. You did. That was your take on life, and it still is. I hope that you understand the gratitude that I have for you being that way with us, being fearless. I was thinking about a time when something was where we were called to be fearless, and there's so many. I'll talk about one that makes me think about how I was afraid, and you were like, "Come on." um, One of those times we lived in South Baton Rouge projects, and there were gangs, there were people that wanted to be part of gangs. It was just bad guys and good guys, and just some guys that just wasn't up to no good, and decided to take it upon themselves to write graffiti on the outside walls of our community. And although, for some, it was just something we just passed by and were like, ain't nothing, you know. But to you, you looked at it as something that at the time did not need to be there. And you were adamant about getting it off of there. And so what you did was you went and you got you some mismatch paint, or some, not some expensive paint that you had to pay a lot of money to get,
Oh, Miss Tint. Miss
Miss
Tint.
Tint.
You could buy Miss Tint, a gallon of Miss Tint for a fraction of the price. Yeah.
It was like something that was out of a movie, I'm sure. You grabbed us together and said, let's paint this wall. And I was afraid. I was like, what if they see us painting over it? This is gang stuff. This is people's graffiti, mama. Let's not even do this. But it was our neighborhood, and you felt like it didn't need to have this stuff on the walls. And my sister and I and you painted that wall. As they slowly passed by in their cars, I could feel myself shaking inside with fear. But you were just like, oh no, we are not about to be afraid of this. And we took it, we took it to the steps that we needed to take to get it cleaned up. And still to this day, it is there. And I admit, it's just one of those kinds of things that um, I can't say any louder that I was able to be fearless with my mother. And that kind of fearlessness is what changes the world. And
Well,
maybe, sometimes people, like you said, when you are, when you could possibly be taken away from this earth because people see that, um, you were able to do it in your community and encourage and inspire other mothers and other fathers and children in communities for decades to be fearless. You may not see it, but I see it. I see it in the fact that from time to time people will notice me and say, "Oh, you're Miss Anthony's mama. She was the one
no,
who
you the
did
daughter,
this for
I'm the
me."
mama.
Yeah, you know, you Miss Anthony's daughter. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, that Miss Anthony was. They say Miss Anthony. She was the one that helped me do this or taught me how to do this, and showed me that I could be this. I see it. So I want you to know that um, you have inspired many, and you continue to do that. So when I asked what you wanted to be when you grew up, it was because I wanted to know what brought you to where you are.
I
So
want
I
I want to make
go,
one comment
go ahead.
so that people don't get the wrong idea. I am truly for the arts, uh, the fine arts, and artistic expression, but I am not for putting out negative, uh, mindless, nasty stuff out in the neighborhood. That's not uplifting, not edifying anybody, and not the people's property who are drawing. They not even drawing, writing, unnecessary stuff on other folk property. Now I think one of the most beautiful things about South Baton Rouge in more recent years is that they started the drive in Baton Rouge with mural art, and to just show you how impactful, positively impactful it is. It's hardly anywhere that you go. There's movies being made, and they show those murals as a part of the Baton Rouge culture. There are TV commercials about Baton Rouge, and you see some of that art. So I'm really a supporter of the arts, but I'm not a supporter of mindless graffiti, just
Well, I think
mindless
I think
scribble.
everyone would agree and understand that the purpose of you at that moment was to exercise your right as a
Parent.
parent, as a community activist, and just in respect for where you lived. Um, your degree path, which is interesting. You chose photography, right?
No, I started. I wanted, I wanted to go to uh, a TV school in Texas, and my mom. It was a 2-year program, and they came up to interview me and everything, and I don't know if I was ever accepted or not because My mom said that for the amount that it costs for this school in Dallas, that I could have a 4-year degree at Southern, and that she wasn't gonna, support that endeavor. So I decided, I went up to Southern to try to interview them to see if I could get a degree, a journalism degree, which would have been the only kind of writing thing they'd have. And they told me they didn't have a degree for journalism yet, but that I could do journalism as a minor and English as a major. Well, my parents was overjoyed at that because they assumed that it, although I was in the humanities, they just assumed that I would become an English teacher. So I went my freshman year, and they had promised me that, by my sophomore year, they would have a degree in journalism. Sophomore year, they did not have a degree in journalism, and that was 1972, and it was the year that Students United developed, and the Southern University boycott happened, and you know, it Denver Smith and Leonard Brown lost their lives, and I actually lost my taste actually for school. And
Was that how you got into activism?
yes,
Hmm.
um, yes, because students came together, documented their grievances. Um, I was by that time I had met your father, Louis Anthony, and maybe by that time we were engaged. Yes, we were. We were engaged to be married, and he was a senior in the engineering department, and a big part of the protest came out of engineering and the architecture departments. They were the ones who began to meet and began the discussions on the improvements that they thought were possible for Southern University. And
So, oh, go
Mhm.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that people really don't realize was that back then Southern University was under the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board, just like a elementary school or a junior high school or a high school. And one of the that was one of the grievances that we had. And after everything, and the governor made a blue ribbon board to investigate what was happening, what was going on. One of the things that he decided to do was to push for Southern University to have its own board. The East Baton Rouge Parish School Board at that time was all male and all white. And so Southern got its own board, and Miss Eva Lagarde became the first Black woman school board member
Hmm.
in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Now, for you, I was
Oh,
asking about.
let me just put this in there. I'm sorry, because you went to Polk Elementary, and so they have now named Polk Elementary Eva Lagarde Elementary. In fact, it's Eva Lagarde Environmental Elementary School. Somebody needs to Google it for me to get the name correctly, the exact name. But I'm sorry. Go on.
No, no, no. That's exciting. I knew that they had changed the name to Eva Lagarde, but I didn't know they added that as well. I wonder if they will be doing anything specific to that for the kids learning, which would be
Yeah,
pretty exciting, I think.
I think that's their curriculum.
Okay, okay. I know that I was speaking of the photography because I know that you got into that pretty deeply. When did that happen? Because honestly, I thought when you said that, what you're wanting to be, I thought it was going to be something to do with photography. I thought you're going to say, I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer or something like that. I don't know.
No.
So
Let
I
me,
was I was talking about your career, your degree path to kind of figure that out. But please tell us, how did you get into
okay.
photography? Because some of you might not know, but uh, Stephanie Anthony is a photographer.
Well, believe it or not, oh, let me tell you this before I answer that question. The actual name is the Eva Lagarde Center for Coastal and Environmental Studies.
Ah, okay.
And so let me go on with that. To answer your question, no, that's not what I wanted to do. In fact, my mother has suggested that photography would be something that I would really enjoy. And I was like, not me hauling around all that equipment. Because you got to remember that, this was back in the day, and that photography equipment was heavy. It was a lot of it, and it was expensive. So it wasn't until I had dropped out of school and came back. I had dropped out of school, got married, or I got married, dropped out of school, uh, moved to South Carolina, Virginia, New York, upstate New York, Detroit. I'm leaving some place out. Then came back to Baton Rouge and re entered Southern University because by this time they had a degree in journalism.
Mm.
So, one of the, for print journalism, one of the requirements was photography. And so, let me show you. I signed up for the photography class. Um, I was the only female, and my instructor announced to the class that, and a part of photography back then was developing film. And so my instructor, announced to the class that he didn't go in the dark room with women. And so I wouldn't be able to go in the dark room because you had to go in the dark room at the beginning of the course with your instructor. So all of the guys got a chance to go in and learn, and I had to sit in the hallway and just read it out of a book. And there was a teacher there, Dr. Crump,
Hmm.
and one day he asked me, why was I sitting out? He was trying to find out if I was always late for class or what. Why was I, always sitting out? And I told him what my teacher had said. And he had a class right after our photojournalism class. And he said, You got another class after your photojournalism class? And I was like, no. He said, well, you just stay and you come on in with my class.
Hmm.
And that's how I learned photography. And that's how I learned development. Just that part. And huh, uh, back in that day, there was one professional black photographer, John Williams, that was very, very popular, and that later became a photographer, the first black photographer for the State Times.
Hmm.
And he shot football. And there I was. I all I had was the camera, no extra lenses, no light, nothing, just a camera. That's all. And he had taken my first portrait when I was 5 years old. I remembered him. He remembered me.
Hmm.
And he started giving me tips. He had everything, every kind of piece of equipment you would ever want. And
Wow.
he would say all the time, well, that's all right. I didn't have nothing. All I had was a camera. I had a 135 millimeter Minolta camera. And he would just tell me stuff like, and shooting black and white. He would say things like, tell me how to put up my f stop, or how to make it so my picture wouldn't be so grainy, or just different things. And then the young up and coming photographer at that time was James Terry. And James Terry gave me tips as well. And so I'll never forget those two, and
Hmm.
how wonderful they were and generous they were. And I was maybe still, I don't know, somebody else might have found somebody since, but I was the only female shooting football. And wore pumps and stockings, because that was how they roll. That's how professional women, um, you know, um,
What? Now, was it high school or was it college or
college,
was it professional? Which one?
college.
It was college.
It was Southern University football.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
See, this is all like lines and lines and lines pointing at different directions. I played intramural football. So
I know.
this is something else. Okay.
When I said that you guys did everything that I was not able to do, I
Listen,
meant
you
that.
but we gotta pause for a second because you were fearless in that. You were fearless. You were fearless in the fact that that teacher was trying to stout your growth and he looked just like you. Unfortunately, he might have had his own reasons.
And guess what? For that class, a final assignment, I know I turned in a dynamite portfolio, which he never gave me back. They he never gave it to me back, and it was guys in that class that didn't even turn in a final assignment that made an A, and I made a B. And
Hmm.
there was one guy, his name was Chris. Years and years and years later, because sometimes I would get you were I made a living as a photographer for a while. And sometimes I would be double booked or something like that. And I'd run into Chris and be like, you want to take this assignment and make you a little money. And he would always say no. And, he was always hanging with the fellas and not Anyway, long story short, one day I just asked him, I'm gonna call the I'm not gonna call his name. He might still be alive. But we're gonna call him Mr. C.
We can give you. You can get a T now. You and your well, how old? You can get a T. No, I'm saying.
And
Just
let me
call
say
Let's
this:
Talk. Let's call
I'm gonna
Let's Talk.
tell everybody gonna know who I'm talking about if I say this.
Okay.
He was from the islands,
Okay.
and anyway, I asked Chris. I said, you don't never. I say you made an A in that class. I know because back then they used to put your student number and your grade, and they would tape it on the outside of the professor's door. So I saw A, and then come down to me B. And look, I still remember my number 59492. Got a B. And I was like, what? Here I was out there putting my body in harm's way on football fields in stockings and heels.
Come on now.
I had pictures in the digest. I was writing stories to go along with it. And I know I've turned in a dynamite last, final assignment, and I got a B. And you know what he said to me? I ain't care nothing about that class, but I was a veteran. And all they did, I'm gonna tell you, and it used to get me really, really. And when we were in lectures Monday, that the whole conversation was gonna be on the football game the previous Saturday. So I was at the game. I didn't want to back, what do you call it? Backseat quarterback, Monday morning quarterback, you know. Uh, I was just really, really outdone. I'm gonna just say this. Years later, I had years later, when I came back to Southern. Let me say that I started at Southern 1971 and I graduated in 1988. So you see how long it took me.
Listen, that's the part. A lot of listen. Let's just do a little bit of on that. That's not because you decided to run off with the love of your life and become a mom and start your career as a mom and yada yada yada. It's not because of that. It's because of the tragedy that occurred when you were at Southern University. The neglect that the school and the school board did to Southern University and many others to name, that made you have the decision to say, I need to just let y'all figure this out and come back if I want to, because from what I understand, shoot, Syracuse University almost had you.
I did go
You
to
know,
Syracuse. I loved it. I loved it, because it was real. The the writers the writing teachers were actual, they were writers of books,
Hmm.
that were good. uh I enjoyed Syracuse University, and I'm forever grateful for the insight they gave me, and the instruction that they gave me.
Interesting enough, a lot of people don't give credit um, to where it actually should be when it comes to people that take time to finish something. You know, you don't know the dash in between that. What happened during the dash? A lot happened during the dash, but there was a reason for that. And like what the hashtag that's up there right now, Students United 1972. That was a dash in between your finishing at
Ooh.
Southern University, and many
I,
other. No, you're about to say.
yeah, excuse me. I was just thinking that it affected my life, my everything, my
Mhm.
outlook, everything. And we didn't know back then that some things you need some counseling for. And I mean, once you walked in the blood of, your fellow students, uh, that's a scar that is very, very hard to heal. And I really maybe started to heal this year when the governor and the mayor um, both came out to um, give honor to the Student United leaders who were arrested, some of them barred from Southern University for life, and gave them certificates and what do you call it, amnesty.
Hmm.
So I just started the healing process.
Well, that's beautiful. We want you to continue to heal because let me tell you something. Had that not happened in between your dash, we have no idea where you might be today. Now, I'm not going to doubt the fact that, your fearlessness did not exist, because it did, and your fearlessness has continued to thrive. The South Baton Rouge community and many others, everywhere that the airwaves can hear your voice, is thriving because of your fearlessness, and it's not stopping you. Just think about it, like somebody who was told that they can't go to the dark room, and that's the only way you really do. Like, how, if I'm taking a picture nowadays, okay, say kids, it wasn't always like this. You couldn't just take a picture and see it. No, 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 no. There was a, I give me the proper
Process.
terms, but there was a, uh,
A
something you
roll
look
of
through.
film.
You look through there, and that's the space that you see the other side of that. What's in front of your face, your obstruction, which is the camera. But on the other side of that, you take a picture, you don't know what you got. So if you
And
can't go
believe
to
it
the
or
dark
not,
room,
back
you,
then, going in the dark room was the fastest way for you to see what you got. And you had to develop the film and then go into the dark room to print it out on paper, and using very, very toxic chemicals. It was coal in there. It was a, a process that could not easily be explained so that you could do it.
by
Uh,
yourself.
yeah, without
There can be all kinds of mistakes. Somebody can open the door. You can put put it in the water too long. I'm not saying
yeah,
water, but put it in
yeah,
the chemical too long. Take it out too slow. You're
not
not swishing it
agitated
around right.
correctly.
You
Right.
know, I took some photography classes back in my day, so I understand that wholeheartedly, and I respect that you were fearless enough to say, "Yes, sir, I am in need of somebody to take out the time to do what they're paid to do and show me how to develop,
Yeah.
so that I can be the best that I can be and be successful in life." Sometimes, it's interesting when you don't know somebody's story and how they got there. You just think, oh yeah, she was just good. That's how. Oh yeah, she was a photographer on the ground. So she was real good because there was only her. Um, and that's pretty awesome. I was just thinking, it's funny. I was just thinking the other day, they had um a football player. He was one. I'm not now. His name is stuck. I can't even remember his name right now. But dang it, Doug Williams. They had him on television talking about he was the first black to make it to the Super Bowl and win. And I was thinking to myself, does that mean he was good, or that just mean he was just the first?
Well,
Because I'm sure there were plenty of black football players that were phenomenal that did not have the chance to get to the game, not because they weren't good. It was just because of the adversity of that era and adversity that still exists today because of color. We're talking about Black History Month, and we're talking right now to Stephanie Anthony about her journey in life. And the reason why we're doing this is to kind of just take the time to think about, really grasp the reason that Black History Month was created. Because right now, we've all seen the news. A lot of politicians are trying to stop the study of African American studies. They're trying to stop dialogue of Black history because they believe it's not necessary. And they believe other things. But I think it's important for us to really kind of talk to our kids and talk in our community about things that happen. Because back in the day, that's what we used to do. I'm saying we as in our culture. We used to sit around and talk. Well, what happened? Well, what happened? You know? Now we act like we know everything. We don't need to know what happened. Or either we go to Google and we get it from there. But we have breathing, intuitive people that can talk to us about what happened and why and who and where. That helps us really kind of have an idea of what and who we are. I am grateful that I've had you as that person in my life. And it's been like that all my life. And, I have a page full of questions that I wanted to ask, and I see that we are coming to the end of our time. But the wonderful thing about all of this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a 4-part series.
yeah.
This was part 2.
I thank
And
you so much, Claudia. You brought out some things that I really hadn't thought about, and I would like to share one thing, and that is, we mentioned a lot about South Baton Rouge because that's where you grew up, and South Baton Rouge embraced me as an individual, as a member of that community. But I'm really from Eden Park, and I just want the little girls in Eden Park to know that you're marvelous. You can do anything. It's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of pulling to make your dreams come true. But this is a time that you can really, really, really uh, get your dreams together. Your most important thing in this day and time is not to get sidetracked, because you don't get um, fifth and sixth chances anymore. You don't think, you just love yourself and dream big. Dr. King said, I have a dream, and I say everybody needs a dream. So I thank you so much, Claudia. This was much more fun than I imagined.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't scare you in the beginning. But I hope that I hope that you know that I love you and thank you for all that you've done in pushing me and my siblings and everyone around us that can hear your voice to be fearless.
And listen, I want to invite everybody out on uh, shucks, what I'm trying to say, on Sunday, we will be honoring Sister Dorothy Winchester, who is an usher at Little Rising Sun Baptist Church located at 1275 South 16th Street. We will be honoring her for 3 decades of service as an usher in the church. She was more than an usher. We want to give her her roses while she can smell them, and she is worthy to be praised. So if you're able to come on out at 3 o'clock on Sunday, um, that's
That's tomorrow.
February the 12th. February the 12th at 3 p.m. God bless you and keep you. Bye bye.